I never thought I'd be that guy, the one who finds out his wife has been cheating on him and then spends weeks trying to pick up the pieces. But here I am, and honestly, I'm still trying to process it all. Her name is Emily, and we'd been together for almost 7 years. To everyone else, we looked like the perfect couple, the kind people envy. She's gorgeous, smart, witty, and confident. I was proud to call her my wife, or at least I was. Looking back, there were always little signs that something was off. She'd be on her phone more than usual, acting secretive about her texts, even when I asked her who she was talking to. She'd cancel plans last minute with a weird excuse about work or feeling tired, but I caught her sneaking off to the bathroom to answer calls or text messages. I brushed it off at first, thinking I was just paranoid or maybe imagining things. But inside, I knew something was wrong. Our relationship had started to feel different, colder, more distant. She'd snap at me over the smallest things, call me clingy, when I just wanted to spend some quality time together. She'd tease me about being too invested, but I could see it in her eyes, something was going on. Still, I convinced myself maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe she was stressed at work or just busy. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Then came the night I found out for sure. It was late, around 2 a.m., and I was lying in bed scrolling through my phone, just killing time. I noticed her phone sitting face down on the nightstand, which wasn't unusual, except that I saw a notification pop up on the screen. It was a message from someone named Jake. I didn't recognize the name at first, but then I remembered that's her coworker. What caught my eye was the last part of the message. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've missed you." My stomach dropped. I didn't even know she was seeing anyone else, let alone someone named Jake. I half expected maybe it was just a friendly message, a joke, or something innocent. But the tone was different, flirty, intimate. Not the kind of message you send to a coworker about work unless you're hiding something. I hesitated, my heart pounding, and then I tapped on her phone to read the full conversation. What I saw made my blood run cold. She was texting him about making plans to meet up after her late shift at the bar they both work at. She told him she'd bring some wine, that she was so tired of pretending everything's fine, and that she wanted to feel alive again. The messages were dripping with desire, and the way she signed off some of them. "Can't wait to see you, babe," hit me like a ton of bricks. That was it. I couldn't even breathe for a moment. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was reading. How long had this been going on? Was it just this one night, or had there been other times? My mind flooded with questions, each worse than the last. I felt betrayed, humiliated, like I'd been punched in the gut. I'd always known she had a fiery streak, but I never thought she'd do something so blatant, so cruel. I quietly got out of bed, my hands trembling. I didn't want to wake her up, not yet. I sat on the living room couch, the phone still in my hand, replaying everything I'd just seen. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd experienced before. I couldn't believe she'd been lying to me all this time, pretending everything was fine while she was sneaking around behind my back with someone I used to call my friend. The guy I'd trusted, Jake, the guy who used to hang out with us, sleep over at our place. It all felt like a sick joke now. And that's when I knew I couldn't keep quiet any longer. I had to confront her. I had to know the truth, even if I was terrified of what I'd find. But part of me already knew. My wife was a bitch when she wanted to be, and I had no doubt she'd lie her way out of this one. The question was, how much more was she willing to lie? How much more was I supposed to take? I felt a mixture of anger and heartbreak swirling inside me, and I knew that whatever came next was going to change everything. The next morning, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept spinning, replaying that damn conversation on her phone, every time. I closed my eyes, I saw her messages, the way she described missing Jake, craving his touch. I'd always thought we had a good marriage, solid, honest, full of promises. But now all those promises felt hollow, like I'd been living in a lie. I got up early, made a strong coffee, and decided I needed to talk to her face to face. No email, no text. I wanted to see her eyes when I told her I knew. As I walked into the bedroom, she was still asleep, her face peaceful but unaware of the storm brewing just beneath her skin. I stood there for a moment looking at her. I thought about everything we'd shared, the trips, the laughter, the quiet nights. It all seemed meaningless now. I woke her up gently, pretending to be normal, but inside I was furious. "Emily," I said softly, "we need to talk." Her eyes fluttered open and she looked at me with that fake sweetness she always used when she wanted to manipulate me. "What's wrong, babe?" she asked, brushing her hair back. I took a deep breath and laid the phone on the bed between us, showing her. The screen, her face instantly changed. Her eyes widened, then narrowed into that bitchy glare she always used when she was caught. "What is this?" I demanded, voice trembling. "Who is Jake, and what the hell have you been doing behind my back?" She sat up, scoffing. "Oh, come on," she said, rolling her eyes. "It's just a stupid chat, nothing serious, you're overreacting." I shook my head. "Really? Because it looks pretty damn serious to me." "You've been sneaking around, lying to my face, telling him you're tired of pretending everything's fine and wanting to feel alive again. What's that about Emily?" She crossed her arms and smiled, that nasty, condescending smile she always used when she was trying to play innocent. "Look, it's not what you think. Jake and I were just having some fun. Nothing serious. It's just sex, okay? Sometimes you need something more than what we have here." I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. Sex. That's all she saw this as. Just a meaningless fuck with some guy she met at her stupid job. I felt the rage boiling up. How could she lie so easily? How could she pretend she was just some innocent victim when she was out, cheating on me with someone I used to trust? The betrayal stung worse than anything else. I demanded she tell me everything. How long this had been going on, how many times she'd seen him, whether I was just another placeholder to her. She shrugged, acting like it was no big deal. "Honestly, I don't even remember when it started. It just happened. He's fun and I needed that. You're so boring sometimes, you know. Always working, never really listening. Jake makes me feel alive, that's all." She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk, like she was daring me to do something. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I held back. Instead, I told her to pack her bags, that I'd had enough. I couldn't stay in a marriage where I was constantly being lied to, where I was treated like an idiot. She just laughed, that sharp, dismissive laugh she reserves for when she thinks she's got control. "Go ahead. Be dramatic. But you're not going anywhere. Not yet, at least. We'll see how you feel after you've had some time to cool off." I left the room feeling hollow, like I'd been kicked in the chest again and again. All the trust I'd had in her and us was shattered. I felt like I was drowning, trying to hold on to some semblance of normalcy. The worst part, knowing she didn't even care how much she hurt me. That she was so damn cocky, convinced she could keep me in her pocket like I was just some idiot who'd forget it all with a little time. But I wasn't going to forget. I couldn't. My mind was racing, trying to figure out my next move. I knew I'd have to confront her again, maybe even tell some of our friends or family. But right now, all I could do was sit there, staring at the wall, feeling the weight of betrayal crush me. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it coming, how I'd missed all the signs. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of a long, painful journey. After I told her to pack her bags, she just sat there for a moment, silent, like she hadn't expected me to actually mean it. That bitchy smirk on her face finally faded into something colder, more calculating. She looked at me with this dismissive glare and said, "Fine, do whatever you want, but you're not going to change anything. Jake, not going anywhere either, and honestly, I'm not sorry. You should be glad I found someone who can satisfy me." That was the moment I realized she was completely void of remorse, that she thought she was entitled to do whatever she wanted, to whoever she wanted. I tossed her bag on the bed and told her to get out. She went into the bathroom without another word, probably to grab some of her things. I stood there, staring at the door, feeling like I was losing my mind. I couldn't believe I'd been living with a woman who was so manipulative, so damn selfish. For 7 years, I thought we had something real, and now I saw her for what she really was, a liar, a cheat, a user. I was so angry I could almost taste it. While she was in the bathroom, I started to gather my thoughts. I looked around the apartment, trying to find something, anything, that made sense. Anymore. I noticed her phone still lying on the bed, the screen flickering with notifications from other apps, probably more messages from Jake or her friends. I hesitated, then grabbed it just to see if there was more I should know. I didn't want to do this, but I needed to know how deep this went. That's when I found texts from other women, flirty conversations, suggestive messages, even some with her bragging about how easy it was to get Jake's attention. She wasn't just cheating with him, it seemed like she was playing the field, juggling different guys like they were disposable. Part of me was sickened, but another part was almost relieved. At least I knew she was the lying, manipulative bitch I'd suspected. She wasn't just some innocent victim in this mess. She was the one causing it. When she finally came out of the bathroom, her face was pale but her attitude still snippy. I handed her the phone and told her I'd seen enough. "You've been lying all along," I said quietly but firmly. "You're nothing but a cheat, Emily, and I don't want you in my life anymore. You think you can just screw around. Lie and then come home like everything's fine. Not anymore, I'm done." She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You're overreacting as usual. This is just sex, remember. It's not like I'm leaving you for him. I don't need your permission to have some fun." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She had the nerve to act like I was overreacting, like I was the crazy one for catching her. That was the moment I truly realized how little she cared about us, about anything but herself. I told her she was a selfish bitch and that she needed to leave. She looked at me with this smug smile, acting like she'd won, like I was just some naive fool for trusting her. She said she was not going to let some stupid little fight ruin her life. That's when I snapped. I told her to get out and she finally stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, shaking, feeling numb but also strangely free. For the first time in years, I could breathe again without her fake smile and constant lies. But the aftermath was worse than I expected. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the empty spot where she used to sleep. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her bitchy attitude, her sneaky behaviors. I'd been so in love, so desperate to believe in us that I ignored every red flag. Now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who cared about herself more than anyone else. I knew I had to start over, that I couldn't stay in this mess. But part of me still felt guilty, like I'd lost the one person I thought I'd spend my life with. I kept wondering if I could ever forgive myself for not seeing it earlier, for not walking away sooner. But I also knew I deserved better than her, better than a woman who cheated, lied, and thought she could just play me for a fool. That was the last thing I ever expected to happen to me. It's a harsh lesson, but one I'm starting to understand. Trust is earned, and some people just aren't worth the pain. The days that followed were a blur of confusion, anger, and a strange sense of relief. I kept replaying everything in my head, her sneaky texts, her bitchy attitude, how she dismissed everything I said like I was bothering her. It was like waking up from a nightmare, but the nightmare was real. I started to realize how much I had ignored, how much I had justified her behavior, convinced myself that maybe I was just imagining things. But now there was no denying the truth. She was a liar, a cheat, and she'd used me like a damn pawn in her game. I decided I needed to get out of the apartment for a while. It was too filled with memories, too much pain lurking behind the walls. I booked a hotel downtown, packed a bag, and left her to deal with her mess. The first night alone in that hotel, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything I'd lost, our future, the trust, the promises. And I kept asking myself how I was supposed to move on from this, how I was supposed to get past the feeling that I'd been nothing but a fool for years. That weekend was the worst. I ran into some friends, told them what happened, and their reactions were mixed. Some were sympathetic, telling me I was better off without her. Others were more skeptical, warning me that maybe she'd come back, that she'd realize what she lost. But deep down, I knew better. I knew she didn't care. If she did, she wouldn't have cheated, lied, and dismissed me like I was trash. I also started to look into my options. Should I fight for the marriage? Should I try to forgive her and move on? Honestly, each option seemed worse than the last. I'd been with her so long, I'd built my entire life around us, but I couldn't ignore the fact that she had betrayed me in the worst way possible. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads with no clear direction. Every choice seemed painful, every path led to some kind of heartbreak. One thing I knew for sure: I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I couldn't ignore the fact that she was a bitch who lied to my face, who thought she was entitled to do whatever she wanted because she was bored or wanted to feel alive. That realization hit me hard. I'd let her control too much, give her too much leeway. I was too trusting, too naive. But now I was starting to see the truth of her. She didn't care about me, about us. It was all about her, her needs, her pleasure, her bullshit stories. I decided that I needed time to heal, to figure out what I really wanted. I contacted a lawyer just to see what my options were legally if I decided to divorce. I didn't want to be that guy who just seethed in anger forever, but I knew I needed to protect myself. I also reached out to a few close friends, ones I could trust, and told them everything. Surprisingly, some of them were supportive, even angry at her. They told me I deserved better, that I shouldn't settle for a woman who didn't value me. That's when the biggest shock came. I started to realize how much her betrayal had broken me, but also how much it had awakened something in me. I'd been a good husband, I thought, but maybe I'd been too blind. Maybe I needed to start focusing on myself, on what I wanted from life. I couldn't let her define me anymore. I couldn't let her bullshit ruin everything. It was time to rebuild, to find my own path, no matter how painful it was. The truth was, I was hurt, furious, and incredibly disappointed. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I could see now what kind of woman she was, someone shallow, selfish, and manipulative. And I knew I'd never let anyone treat me that way again. I'd learned a lesson the hard way. Trust is fragile, and some people will hurt you just to get what they want. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I might be broken right now, but I'll heal. And someday, I'll find someone who actually deserves my trust. The weeks went by, and I threw myself into trying to pick up the pieces. I moved out of the apartment, found a small place close to work so I wouldn't have to deal with the constant reminder of her. I cut contact with her completely. No texts, no calls, no social media. I couldn't stomach the thought of her trying to manipulate me further. Honestly, I felt like I was on autopilot, just going through the motions, waiting for the storm inside me to settle. I also started seeing a counselor. I needed someone to help me process the betrayal, the anger, the hurt. At first, I didn't want to admit how deeply I'd been hurt. I didn't want to seem weak. But finally, I opened up, and talking about all of it helped. It let me see that I wasn't crazy for feeling this way, that my feelings were valid. Deep down, I knew that forgiving her wasn't going to be easy, and maybe I shouldn't forgive her at all. Maybe I needed to accept that some things could never be fixed. One thing I kept reminding myself of was that I deserved better. I deserved someone who genuinely loved me, who respected me. Emily's betrayal had shown me her true colors, and I started to realize how much I'd sacrificed for her over the years. I was always putting her first, always making excuses for her bitchy attitude or her lies. But now, I saw clearly, she was only ever out for herself. The sex, the lies, the manipulations, they all pointed to one thing. She didn't value our relationship, she just wanted her own pleasure, her own escape. I made a promise to myself to focus on me. I started working out regularly, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected, and even exploring new hobbies that I'd always put aside. I knew I needed to rebuild my confidence, my sense of self-worth. The hardest part was accepting that everything I thought I knew about my marriage was a lie. But I also knew that I couldn't keep living in the past, chasing ghosts of what we once had. That was over. Now it was about figuring out how to move forward, even if that meant starting completely from scratch. The most surprising thing happened one evening when I ran into an old friend, Sarah, who I hadn't seen in years. She was one of the few people who knew us both well. When I told her what happened, she looked at me with shock but then said something I never expected. "You're better off without her," she said. "You're still a good man, and you deserve someone who actually cares about you, not someone who treats you like an option. Don't let her bring you down. You've got to move on." Those words hit me hard, like a wake-up call. I realized that I'd been holding on to hope that maybe she would change, that somehow she'd realize what she lost. But deep down, I knew better. She was who she was, selfish, manipulative, and not worth my tears. It was time to accept that I couldn't fix her, couldn't save her from herself. I had to save myself. And honestly, that was the hardest but most necessary step. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to chase after her or try to make sense of what she did anymore. I was going to focus on my healing, on building a life that didn't revolve around betrayal and lies. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and I'd carry scars for a long time. But I also knew I'd come out stronger, more aware, more cautious, and more determined not to let anyone treat me that way again. That's what this whole nightmare has taught me. Never to settle, never to ignore my gut, and always remember that I deserve real respect and love. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize how much I've grown through this hell I went through. It's funny, I used to think a lot of my happiness depended on her. On us, but the truth is, it was my own stupidity for not seeing what was really going on. I was blind because I loved her, because I wanted the fairy tale ending everyone dreams of. But love isn't supposed to feel like a trap, a lie, or a constant betrayal. I learned that the hard way. I won't lie, I still feel the sting sometimes. There are nights when I wonder if I could have done something differently, if I should have seen the signs sooner, but mostly I feel relieved. Relieved that I finally faced the truth, that I didn't let her keep controlling my life. I've learned to trust myself again, to listen to my instincts, and I've realized that I don't need her or anyone like her to define my happiness. I've started rebuilding my confidence, piece by piece, and I'm discovering that I'm stronger than I ever believed. Looking back, I see how her bitchy, manipulative attitude was always a mask for her insecurities and selfishness. She wanted to feel alive, and instead of working on herself or communicating honestly, she chose to cheat and lie. That's her loss. Not just because she lost me, but because she lost her integrity too. And honestly, I don't envy her. I don't need closure anymore. I just need to move forward, knowing I did the right thing by walking away. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, here's what I want you to take from my experience. Don't ignore the red flags. Don't make excuses for someone's bad behavior. And most importantly, don't let anyone treat you like you're less than you deserve. Love is built on trust, respect, and honesty, not lies, manipulation, or cheating. If you find yourself in a situation where someone's disrespecting you, the best thing you can do is walk away. It will hurt, yes, but in the end, it's the only way to find your peace. I may be scarred, but I'm also free. Free from her lies, her bitchy attitude, her betrayal. And I know someday I'll find someone who truly values me, someone who doesn't cheat, lie, or play games. Until then, I'll keep rebuilding myself, piece by piece, and never let anyone make me feel small again. Because I've learned that real strength is recognizing your worth and walking away from anything that diminishes it.